Hello, everyone. Episode 43 of the Treatment Room Secrets podcast. And we have a special guest who I met for the first time a few minutes ago. So, Kat, thank you very much for being here.
It's my pleasure.
How do I pronounce your last name?
Balaam.
Balaam. Because I was a football player.
Mm-hmm.
I was a centre back. And I mentioned a few times I grew up in Israel. I just mentioned Israel. And in Hebrew, God's language, there centre back or central defender is Balaam.
Okay.
B-A-L-A-M. So that's how I pronounce your name in my head until now. So Balaam. So Kat Balaam, thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure.
You might want to, I hate to say this, but move this a bit because it's like the metal part is in your face. But that's good. But I think you can twist like the, you can twist that a bit. Oh, okay, that's perfect. Yeah, there you go. That's perfect. So I came across, I did look on your website, which you told me to, but I did anyway. And I saw you're a Bengali massage therapist.
Uh-huh.
What is Bengali massage?
So the name, it's quite a story.
But is it something? Because I haven't come across it.
It's not traditional.
It's not okay.
So my teacher's teacher was from Bengal, and I asked my teacher, "What do I call this?" And he said, "It's just massage." And I was like, "You can't. I need something more." And he said, "Well, if you must give it a name, then call it Bengali massage." Bengali what? Because his teacher was from Bengal, but that's not traditional from Bengal in any way, as far as I understand.
Yeah. So what makes it unique, though? The type of massage.
So my teacher lived in a community called Auroville in India. Have you heard of Auroville?
I haven't.
So Auroville is
it's an ashram?
No, it started by a woman called the Mother, who called herself or was called the Mother, who is a disciple of Sri Aurobindo.
Was this a Netflix documentary that just came out? The Mother?
Not as far as I know.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not up on my Netflix documentaries.
No, just because I've heard recently The Mother, which is
it's called Wild Country, the documentary.
That's a different one though. Wild Country is
Wild Country is Osho.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, very good documentary.
Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah.
So the Mother was a disciple of Sri Aurobindo. And then from his ashram in Pondicherry in South India, she then went on, and I'm not exactly sure of the story, but she went on to found Auroville, which she wanted to be a city based on the principles of Sri Aurobindo's teachings. And so they took an area of desert and some people from the ashram, and they planted like 6 million trees or something, and they created this beautiful space. So it's all, everyone lives on the same wage. Everyone pays into the community. That's the basic theory. I don't live there. I haven't spent a great deal of time there. There's a lot of politics.
But you have been there.
Oh yeah, that's why I remember my teacher. I've spent quite a bit of time there, but as a tourist, essentially, not as part of the long-term community. But my teacher was one of the first people to go from Sri Aurobindo's ashram to start Auroville, and everyone had a task in the beginning. And he had become friends with this man, Birenda, in the ashram, an Indian man. My teacher was French. And so he'd met this Indian man in the ashram, and he had developed this way of massaging people. So the story, as I've been told, is that he was a professional sportsman. He was a professional boxer and tennis player, and he traveled somewhat doing his sports, and he experienced many different types of massage. And when they started Auroville, everyone was given a task by the Mother. Everyone was given a role to play. And apparently Birenda was told to do massage by the Mother. And he said, "But I do not know." And she said, "Your hands will know." And so then he created this style that then he taught my teacher, because then my teacher, he turned up to Auroville. There's all these people in the canteen. They're all planting these trees all day. They're all there like broken backs and just looking really tired. And so he thought, well, I must do massage too. So he went to Birenda and he learned this massage from him, which when I first experienced it, it blew my mind. Yeah. I went to India I was 25, very naive, and I went trotting off to India like, I'm going to go and find my guru. I'm going to find a little old man in a nappy who's going to teach me massage, having done a sort of holistic massage course in the UK and just thought this isn't, like people talk that this is something special and this is not special. So I tried off,
India.
To India. And you've got to really watch what you ask for when you visit India. That's what I learned, because I arrived and it just went out of control. I don't feel like I chose any of the things that happened. I just went, okay. And then I ended up being booked in to have a massage with this man that they call Guppy. And
in Auroville.
In Auroville. And I remember turning up to my appointment and I waited for 3 hours, and I'm not a patient person. And so I was like, this is India teaching me patience, and I will sit and I will wait, and it's fine and it's beautiful and the flowers are lovely and, the mosquitoes are, but it's fine. And then I had a massage with Guppy, and I just couldn't believe what had happened. I felt like, for me, it's actually quite emotional. It's very special.
But why? Because it was a life-changing moment for you?
Absolutely a life-changing moment, And
it was different than what you've experienced before when it came to massage.
I mean, I learnt massage in a college in Bournemouth, and it was very dry.
Generic.
Yeah, very generic and very uninspired and unintuitive, and and I just didn't think it was any good, basically. I mean, I didn't know anything, but all I knew is that was not good.
But it gave you some introduction, because
I mean, and it was not a bad introduction. I felt like my teacher was really good at what she did, but what was offered I felt was just,
but maybe you needed that first mini step before experiencing whatever you experienced.
I needed to dip my toe, I guess. And then I came out from my massage and I went back to the place I was staying, and I remember having a conversation with someone else staying in the hostel, and I said, I feel like this must have been what my body felt like the day I was born. Like I felt like every bit of my body had been taken out, shaken, freed up and put back together. And it just felt just deeply amazing, and I couldn't really describe it. And I was actually on my way to study Ayurvedic massage in Kerala. It was like a little stop off because I had some time to kill before my course began. And then I left the next day. I got on a bus and off I went. And on the bus, I just realized like I just met the man that I was looking for, like this amazing, humble, sweet, gentle, small, little Frenchman.
No nappy.
No nappy, just Bermuda shorts.
That's good.
But that's all he wore, just his little shorts, because he was massaged all day long. And he was a very special man, He had a little photo in his little sort of hut that he did massage of, him and the Dalai Lama. And when the Dalai Lama, apparently he came to Auroville to meet some Aurovillians, and they brought 50 residents, and they always put them in their same T-shirts. They're all matching T-shirts. And Guppy's a very small guy. And he stood at the back of the room because he's a very humble, very sweet guy. And the Dalai Lama spotted him, and he moved people out the way, and he went up to him and he said, "We are the same." And there's a photo of the Dalai, because Dalai Lama's quite a tall guy actually, and he's got Guppy, like this, and they're walking around together, and they both look so happy, So that's the man who taught me massage, and he just all day long he massaged, and he would repeat mantra and just all day long, and every day he would cycle his bicycle to Pondicherry, which is like I think about 10k round trip or something, and just constantly all the time mantra. And you could hear him coming to Auroville. You'd hear the ding ding of the bike and he's really, really. I was very lucky to spend time with him, and for him to be my first real teacher, because what he taught me is to listen, just listen to the body. It was not a formal training. There were no books. There was no anatomy and physiology. There was nothing like that. It was just about listening. And he said, with the body, you always ask the same questions. And depending on the answer, the conversation will go a different way. And I still, when I do the massage still now, so it's like 20 years I've been doing it now. And I still just feel like that. It's always essentially the same massage, but it's also always different. And
so how is it like, you're now giving someone Bengali massage for the first time. So how do people react when they're in the room with you for the first time? Do you spot anything unique? Do they meet something new? Do they realize it's something new and not a generic massage?
Yeah. You couldn't not notice.
Can you help describe it to me? Because I don't even know what to imagine.
Okay, so it's a full body oil massage. So a full massage with nothing complicated going on for that person. Maybe it would take about an hour and 20 minutes. And it's fast, but it's deeply relaxing because it's the whole body. I work on the floor, so the client will be without any clothes, just their underpants only, and then
on the floor.
Yeah. Obviously, it's on a mattress and it's comfortable and it's warm, but it's on the floor.
Not a couch, like not a massage.
No, not a couch. Yeah. And so then I'm working and I jump a lot from side to side. So it's very dynamic for me. It's very dynamic for the client. I move their body around a lot. We explore a lot of like possible movement, see what the body's happy with, finding out where the body's limits are. We're never pushing, never forcing, just always exploring and reminding the body that it is free, because I think our bodies forget. We do the same things every day. We sit in the same seats, we drive the same car, we have the same habits. That's how we live our lives. And we forget that we can do free and dynamic and explorative movement. But our body needs that, it really needs that for it to maintain its vibrancy and its potential. It needs that kind of dynamic movement. And people think that they are tight and they are stiff, but actually if they can just breathe out and let go of their body, then they discover that actually it moves in all sorts of ways. And there's no way that you could not notice that it was so completely different from anything.
Yeah, it's like but personally, like suffering, but like experiencing injuries. So when I mentioned a footballer, so I'll go back there. I used to have a lot of hamstring injuries, and it lingered psychologically, which made me always think about how vulnerable my hamstrings are and how they could snap at any moment. And I believe that led me to I made it chronic. I made it chronic. And very recently, I've had I run, so I had a lot of calf injuries. I also tried to change the way I run and different shoes, things like that. But a lot of calf injuries, and I got to a point where, I went from running 25Ks to not being able to run for 6 minutes, and not because of fitness. My calves would I was able somehow to disassociate my calves from my body and what they're used to doing and the connection they had with my body. And I almost forced that just by maybe fear, maybe, just experiencing the vulnerability once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, kind of cemented it in my brain. Okay, now my calves are unable to, they're just unable to, maintain the what I'm asking of them, with this body. I need a new set of calves, or I need to change something. So I try to focus on let go of my legs, try and run like I used to run when I was a kid. That's what I would tell. I still tell now, because this is very recent, by the way. So I'll go for a run and I'll just tell myself, don't even think about your calves. Don't think about your calves. Don't think about your calves. And sometimes by doing that, all you do is think about the calves. So I'm exploring different techniques to just not think about my calves and almost put my legs in a vulnerable position where they're just free. I'm not thinking about the weight they're bearing or using the muscles in my legs, but like when I was a kid, I didn't even know I had muscles in my leg. You just go, right? So as of now, it's that's the battle I'm kind of fighting to remind my legs to be free, and it is helping. So now, by the way, I'm not running 25K, but I'm running more than 6 minutes.
Okay, congratulations.
So I'm on a positive trajectory.
Great. But I think, what you're saying, you talk about your calves so much and that's all you think about. I see it a lot when I meet people that they talk about, they say, 15 years ago, I saw an osteopath or whoever it was who told them that, my, hamstrings are tight, or my this between
I have
L2
tight
and
hamstrings.
L3.
So you walk around saying, I have tight hamstrings.
Yeah, and I really believe that your thoughts and your voice has such power. So if you say, oh, my calves they don't work. My calves aren't right. And you're saying that all the time. Every time you say that, you cement that into your system a little bit more, and our cells, they have such memory, they remember everything. And you're repeating. It's like, we know if you want to do well at something, you got to fix on what you want, you got to sort of set your sights on like the goal and like, yeah, I can do it. Like, yeah, I'm successful but because we believe that will help us. But in the same way, being negative and repeating negative things, it manifests, it creates itself in our body. So I really try, and I'm sure that I forget sometimes, but I really try with my clients not to say like, well, this is the problem,
Also, as a therapist, you have so much power in that dynamics, right?
Yeah.
Especially if someone with less experience with their own body shows up and the therapist says something like tight hamstrings, that might cement tight hamstrings forever in that person.
It's terrible. I mean, a little while ago, I gave a treatment to someone who I'd given one of my first massages to when I first came back from India. And I was really young and really inexperienced. And I didn't even remember that I'd met this guy before, And he said, oh, yeah, you gave me the massage, babe. And I was like, oh, you were one of the first people. And he said, yeah, you told me that I had the muscle. This muscle was like a rope. And I was like, oh, no, I'm so sorry, because that's not true. And, I would never say that now because, but he remembered, and we're talking like, it was like, it must have been 15 years later. But he remembered what I'd said to him. And we were in our 20s, we were kids, it's such responsibility. What you say has such weight. And I also experience it myself when I'm in a session, I'm looking for answers. I'm looking for how can I help my body find resolution? And naturally, I think to find resolution, we want to feel that there's a problem, because then we can fix that problem.
Yep.
So we're listening for that little hook. So then we go, right, okay, I've got tight hamstrings, therefore I need to, if I want to fix it, So it's a dangerous game.
Sorry, can you just, if you pull the mic a little bit closer to you, sorry.
Is that a bit better?
I had a question as well for Kat.
Please, yeah.
So obviously, we're just going back a little bit. That it sounds like a real profound experience that you had at that moment in India. Just wondering, before you had that profound experience, where were you in life, and were you a little bit lost? Were you searching for an experience that was like that? Where were you in your life to have that kind of experience?
I wanted my place, like I'd been.
And you were 24, you said, right?
I was 25, I think. I wanted to feel like I had a thing. I'd done a bit of traveling. I'd met some nice people. A lot of them were a bit older than me, and they were like in media or in this or in that, and they had a little like, this is who I am, this is what I do. And I didn't have that, I worked in bars. I just did any jobs, I'd quite happy just earn some cash, go traveling, whatever. And I really felt like, well, no, I want to find my place. I want to find my role. And then I came back from traveling, and actually my mum was sick. She had breast cancer. She is fine now, and it really made me, and witnessing her treatment and her experience within her treatment made me question that. And I just thought there's got to be a better way, and so I started to explore into alternative therapies, and then I ended up wanting to study aromatherapy. And so I studied massage first, but I kind of got the massage bug,
But even though, like, to some degree, you were looking for the guy in the nappy, which you mentioned, but you also knew that it's just it's a metaphor for something else. The guy in the guru, the guy in the nappy, and also you are going to India is like saying I'm going to the world. It's like it's a huge place, huge possibilities.
I had no idea. No. I had no idea at all.
Yeah. No, but it's like, you're going to India, but you're just going somewhere new. That is scary as well. I'm assuming.
Yeah, I didn't leave the hostel for 3 days. I arrived in Delhi at Holi, and I don't know if you know about Holi, but it's where they throw coloured powder over everything.
Is it the blue thing that you see?
No, it's every colour. It's every colour, but they throw it on everything and everywhere. You see cows and dogs and cars, everything's just covered in colour. Yeah. And that was happening the night that I got there. So I looked out my window and I was like, oh no, I was staying in, and a girl came into the hostel and she had handprints on her t-shirt like this. I thought, I'm not. Yeah, so it was really scary, really scary.
Did you have like anxiety as a person? Did you?
No.
Looking at that, so you had the confidence, but not.
I just was young and naive and a bit stupid, to be honest. I think back now and I was like, oh, I wouldn't do that now. I wouldn't go there and just get on, and just the situations I put myself in, the people that I met. I'm just like, well, that's clearly a red flag. You just wouldn't do that. But I was just like, yeah, great. Let's just try. I was just really up for exploring life and finding my place and trying to kind of follow, not really my intuition as such, but just go with the flow of life, sort of just take what was offered to me. And I guess sort of now as a bit more of an adult, I hope, I think, well, that's quite a philosophical approach, but that wasn't where I was at the time. I wasn't like, well, I'm going to be like this, I was just, just young and foolish, basically. But I'm really lucky that it took me where it took me. I feel really blessed that I had the teacher that I had. I mean, not a lot of people got to learn from him or had the motivation to learn from him because it's physically very demanding.
So even now when you treat someone, it's physically very demanding?
Oh, I'd say more so now because now I'm, 44. I had a baby, 16 months ago.
But it's still, it's an hour and 20 minutes. It's dynamic. You're moving around. You're exploring. Yeah.
These days, currently, the movement is a little bit more effortful than it once was,
Yeah. But more than a generic massage that someone goes to.
Yeah, because I'm on the floor, and I'm jumping from side to side, the body, and I pick up people's legs and I put it over there and then I bring it back and, and I'm on my knees the whole time.
So it's more than a massage for people to also to try and envision this.
Yeah, I mean, massage is not enough of a word. I've always said it's not enough of a word, but I wouldn't know what other word to use. Some people have said, it's a little bit like Thai massage because you move the body around and you do. I don't really do stretches because I don't push, but we explore. But it's big movements, you'll feel like you've moved around. Some people will say at the end of it, they feel like they've been kind of hit by a bus because everything's just moved. And it's just all a bit of a, shock to the system. But it's not, massage is not, it's definitely part of it. And there are some people that have done basic massage courses and they would recognize little bits. Because it's touch and it's, helping the muscles to soften but it's approaching it in a way that I hadn't experienced was available in this culture, I mean, maybe it is now because things have changed a lot in the last 20 years.
But is there a community of people that have studied with your teacher that you guys all kind of...
No, there's not because... He wasn't a formal teacher. Yeah. And so you really had to be like, I'm going to come and I'm going to hang out with you and I'm going to learn this. And he'd be like, yeah, great. He's always really happy to teach. And when I was learning from him, there were several other people learning. But one of them I'm still in very vague contact with. And I know that he never took it on board. And it was really, because it's so physical and it's something that you have to kind of really program into your own muscle memory so that you're really in this fluid kind of set of movements, and you're not thinking about it, you're just in this flow. That's part of what makes it so beautiful and so special and so profound, such a profound experience, is that I feel like it's almost like a dance, like me and the client, we're dancing together, we're moving together. So it took me a couple of years, a good few years, to really find that kind of level of confidence. For years I was still looking at my notes, and now I had a little bit of time off because of the baby and I had a cesarean, so I had to take some time out. And now I've got my notes out again and I'm just checking a little bit. But I've done it for so many years now. It is this just in my bones.
And even you were getting teary-eyed when you were just mentioning the experience. So what do you think made it so emotional? Is it more about, do you think it's the practice or just the combination of where you were and the practice? Or is it, I'm also thinking, it's very impactful if if you also feel it really, like someone's in the room with you, it's intimate and they're spending 80 minutes working on you. Like, I mean, that's attention that none of us ever get from anywhere.
It is really a lot of attention. I think what makes me teary-eyed is that I feel like my experience to find my vocation was quite unique, because I feel like it's almost like in this sea, huge ocean, you know, there was one drop and it was picked up and it was given to me, and it was very specific. And I was, you know, lost kid, really, like just floating around life, having a nice enough time. And when I met Guppy and he said the world needs this massage and there is only me, and I was just like, I am in, you know, like, you're not on your own. I'm going to do this because I agree with you. The world needs this approach.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try and help.
Are there certain principles, like even if you know one or two, that can help, you know, people, maybe something they can add to their practices?
To listen. That's the thing.
The secret sauce.
Is that you just to listen, to learn to listen to the body, to learn to be not necessarily gentle, but fluid enough to follow, to let the body lead, and to listen to what it's saying to you, rather than impose, well, I've learned that I'm going to do A, B, and C, and then D should happen, you know, like to just listen and to be open to being, also to sort of to being wrong, to be like, okay, that's not the right way for you. We won't do that. I think that's the biggest teaching that I had from my teacher, is just listen to the body. And a few years ago, just pre-COVID, I did a small class myself to try and pass this massage on, because I feel like it shouldn't end with me, you know?
Yeah.
And I had 4 students, and one of them was a really experienced and good massage therapist. And she was the person who struggled the most to understand the technique and to really get into that zone, because she was really practiced in using her brain, you know, and to work with people. When I'm just like, put that away, and you just close your eyes and you feel, you know, like
she was doing everything right.
She was doing everything right.
Yeah.
But she also knew she wasn't getting it, you know? But I thought that was really, really interesting. And the people that came to it with no experience at all, you know, they got it. They got that kind of like sensing that thing. And then one of those students has since gone on to do a more kind of formal massage training. And she said that it really helped her in the formal training to understand more of what's going on in the system than just, you know, looking for ABC and then, you know, or doing ABC and then expecting D to happen.
So you sat in with some of the conversation with John, and I'm assuming you heard me mention my somatic therapy experience. And I think John mentioned to me that you do also somatic therapy, or like somatic movement therapy.
Somatic movement, yeah.
So what is that? Is it part also of the Bengali massage?
It's not part. I'd say that there is a similar philosophy, and that it's really kind of listening, you know. I found it through my massage teacher. I watched him teach some of these somatic movements to one of his clients, and it was profound. After a few movements, she went from like, I've been having back pain for however many years, to this is the first time I've had no pain in a very long time. And that really, I was like, okay, what is this that he's teaching her? Because this is something good. And also it was very easy, very simple, very small. And yeah, until eventually I found someone who's teaching outside of the States, because it's mostly in America. It's a guy called Hanna who started this somatic movement. He calls it Hanna Somatics, basically.
Okay.
Hanna Somatics.
Yeah.
So although my teacher studied at the Hanna Somatic Institute, he then put his own.
Yep.
He was an osteopath and put his own knowledge into it as well, and now it's a somatic movement.
So the somatic movement, though, so like, because what I did, from my understanding, is somatic therapy, or somatic language therapy.
Like somatic experiencing, is that?
I don't know. I thought it was like somatic language therapy. We're using like specific word cues and communication to try and evoke some communication from within and emotion from within. So I sat just like this, or I was laying on the couch for some bits, and I was sitting up for some other bits, and closing my eyes, breathing for a few minutes, trying to listen to myself for a few minutes, and then getting some, jabbed with some words or jabbed with some questions, but in a very thoughtful and smart way. I never thought like I wasn't being steered in a certain direction. I was like given a shovel to just dig a bit deeper and see what comes out. So I thought that was very interesting. But somatic movement then,
it's different.
Yeah, so what's the...
But so it's like, just to clarify, the meaning of the word somatic is mind and body is one. So you wouldn't, like a body could be alive or dead, but a soma can only be living, right? It's the experiential body, and so you can go in at that through the mind, through talking, and through using, maybe trigger words or certain noises. I did some little bit of training some years back around that, but I always known that the way in for me is through the body. And so somatic movement, it's about doing very small, very focused movements where you feel. So you talked with John a little bit about what goes on with the vagus, and that you have this kind of autonomic nervous system. So you've got this nervous system that's doing all these things, and you don't choose them. We don't choose to breathe. We don't choose for our heart to beat. We don't choose for our trauma response to be triggered. It happens. Sometimes that will save our life, as John was saying, get you out of a car crash or whatever.
And sometimes you look stupid.
Sometimes it's not required at that moment, and so your body's playing out something that's almost habitual at that point. And in somatic movement, it's understanding that habitual movement is in the subconscious brain, and it's kind of programmed in quite tight. And so your back pain, you may stretch, you may do all these things that help your back pain, and then the next day it hurts again. And the theory that we work with in somatics is that the brain kind of locks in these habits into the subconscious, and so it will reset where the muscle rests. So, and say an average muscle, this is where it rests. This is its kind of normal length, and this is it stretched, and this is it contracted. And so for instance, there's been some kind of trauma and the muscle's contracted and it's got stuck in the contracted state. But the brain over time starts to think, well, that's resting. Even though this is resting, it thinks that this is resting. So when you try and stretch it back to resting, the brain goes, okay, stretch, but we'll come back to what it thinks is the new resting, which is a place that's uncomfortable because it's a contracted muscle, and that muscle is contracted then all the time. That's what my calves felt like. Yeah, so I could teach you something to just undo that really easy. It's because it's...
Can you teach me now?
Well, maybe. Yeah. I mean, so it's about understanding that your brain thinks that it is resting. So if you stretch, then it wants to go back. Mm-hmm. So what you want to do is you want to say, okay, so you can contract a little bit more, brain, pull that in a little bit more, and then you can let go, because then it has somewhere to go, right? So if you try and take it back to resting from what it thinks is resting, it thinks you're stretching. If you let that muscle contract in a little bit more and then let go, then you're more likely to start to move back towards your true resting. And so by doing really small, really focused movements, so you're engaging your conscious brain into these movements. So you run. You don't think about how you run. You don't think about how your muscles are working. You don't think about exactly what is going on in the mechanics of how your calves behave when your foot hits the ground, when you push off the ground. And in somatic movement, we do really, really slow, tiny versions of movements, but we do them in a way so our brain is fully engaged with that process. And you will find that when you're working with someone who has what we call sensory motor amnesia, so that muscle is just locked in to doing something.
Sensory motor amnesia.
Yeah, sensory motor amnesia. So it's not able to feel or to instruct effectively. Your brain's forgotten. Yeah, sensory motor amnesia. So when there is a case of sensory motor amnesia, hang on, I've just forgotten what I was saying. got lost in a loop.
My calves, you were giving me advice.
Oh,
you're doing short activities but fully engaged.
Yeah, so that sensory motor amnesia, it's locked into the subconscious. And so to bring the control of that muscle out of the subconscious brain and into the conscious brain, we need to move it consciously. And so you'll find that when there's a case of sensory motor amnesia, so say, for instance, your calves, we would start to do some work on your calves, and I could say, right, if you're going to lift your heel and put your heel down in that way, can you feel how your calf contracts and relaxes? And you will say, well, no, I don't. I know that it's happening, but I can't feel it happening because your conscious brain is not really connecting in with that muscle group. It's your subconscious brain that's got complete control. And so by just practicing and just keep doing small movements and keeping the conscious brain there, then you start to bring control, bring understanding back into the conscious brain out of the subconscious. And then you can make choices of what you do with that muscle. Whereas when you're stuck in a loop, you don't have any choice. It's just happening all the time. And it's surprising how quickly you can change a habitually contracted muscle state. It's really surprising, and it's painless and gentle and easy. Well.
But I know, but sometimes, like I mentioned to John, like the easy, painless things are so hard to do sometimes, right? But the state of mind that's keeping you restricted or in this tight mode. So I can go through somatic movement therapy. Mm-hmm. You said it can be very quick, the change, right? Or could be
initially, but if you were going to make a permanent change, then you need to
maintain it. Yeah, keep practicing.
Keep it ongoing.
But sometimes, could a unexpected event or unexpected break could that almost solve the problem or create the fix? Because I wanted to believe, let's say I had it with my calves, I went through a bit of an up and downs period, but one of the things I thought was, all right, maybe if I just stop running completely, take time off, don't do anything, and start from zero in a month, like I am a complete new person to running, and go from there and almost allow my body to find its own baseline for my calves and everything else, but to find its own new baseline. Now that maybe we forgot how to run, we forgot what pace we run in, we forgot what mileage we run, and now let's find this new baseline. Is that wrong?
I don't think it's really possible.
It didn't work.
No,
it didn't work. But I had a theory that it would.
Yeah, we hope, right? I think the thing is that your muscle memory is so intrinsic, like it goes so deep. Like you're talking to John about his flute. John doesn't think about what his fingers are doing. All of that is automatic muscle memory. He hasn't thought about that for decades. Like you don't think about writing or all these things. And you could not write for a year, and you would still pick up a pen and you'd be able to write. It might be a bit rusty, your handwriting might not be beautiful, but you would still write.
Yeah.
Because that muscle memory is there. You've learned it. Your calves have learned to run. You walk on them every day. So even if you're not running, you're still doing a very similar movement on a regular basis. And the thing is that your brain thinks it's doing the right thing. Your brain thinks that it's fine. It's set the resting place. That is the right place for them to be. There's no problem. There's no need for your brain to change it because it's not doing anything wrong as far as it's concerned, Yeah. In fact, it thinks it's doing the right thing because it's locking down all these habits into automatic so we can do lots of things.
Yeah.
Imagine if we had to think about every single thing that we did, we'd never get anything done, So I always think it's a bit like, like in Lord of the Rings, you have the tree ents and it takes them years to say their name. Like if we didn't have that kind of subconscious, that autonomic nervous system kicking in, it would take us 5 years just to say our name without moving any part of our body,
Yeah.
And so I don't think that you could stop running long enough to completely undo all of that knowledge, because what you're talking about is actually, you're talking about, just learning again. So you need to be a baby. You'd need to start from that stage to completely learn to do it again,
Yeah.
So I think you'd struggle. But,
Because, talk about like muscle memory, muscle cramping. Can that be, can that turn into something habitual?
Well, I don't see why not. I mean, it makes me remember when I was a kid and I used to do ballet and I used to get cramp in the soles of my feet, and I would get cramp. I'd wake up in the night with cramp. So I wouldn't get it while I was dancing. I'd get it at other times.
Yeah.
So I think that must be muscle memory, right? But any habitual behavior, yeah, a lot of people will cramp in the same places all the time.
Same places all the time.
Not everyone. We all have funny little cramps every now and then when you do too much of something or other. But I think that's definitely possible for it to become a muscle memory to some degree. Obviously, there's other things involved in cramping, like it's about lactic acid and other things like that. So it's not just about muscle memory, but yes, there could definitely be some of that could be involved in a cramp.
Because
you regularly have.
Yeah, because also like something about my own personal exploration with my body and my muscles. But when you cramp a muscle for the first time, because it's the first time and it feels painful, weird, strange. But then I noticed that when I cramp something for the first time, it's never the last time. I've never cramped something for the first time and that's it. So when you said muscle, like, when you create this like muscle memory and this, you form habits, it made me think of that. What got you, so you went from Bengali Massage, and then you learned Bowen with John, or was that without John?
I learned with John, yeah. John was my introduction, yeah.
So what pulled you to that? Because you mentioned jumping all over the place, the floor, and then Bowen is very, very different. The other extreme.
It is very different, but then also I think that it's very similar because it's really about listening.
Yeah, but from an optic standpoint.
From an optic standpoint, it's radically different. And like in my practice, I offer massage and I offer Somatics and Bowen. So sometimes I mix them up. But I would never mix the massage with the Bowen. Because it's a completely different setup.
You'll confuse people.
Yeah, and one Bowen is a clothed treatment and it's on a table and it's like lots of rest and lots of space. And the massage is, naked, on the floor, lots of oil, busy, busy, busy. So how I found Bowen is that I did a swap with somebody and I was doing a swap with them because I think they just moved to the area and they wanted to meet some fellow therapists, and so we did a swap. I gave him a massage and he gave me some Bowen, and he gave me a series of Bowen treatments for, I think it was some shoulder stuff or something I had going on at the time. And what happened in my life was that old emotional patterns started to shift. And so the shoulder thing kind of got a little bit better. It didn't find resolution. But what was interesting is that there were things happening in my life and I'm like, I have had a block around this for years. And actually what the thing was happening is that I was starting to be ready to teach the Bengali massage, and I'd wanted to do that since day one, but I always just felt like I couldn't do it. I didn't even think about it. It was so far away from me. And then all of a sudden it was just coming in and I'm like, where is these? I know I've had these blocks, like where have they gone? And also noticing old like emotional patterns that weren't serving me. And I was like, what is it that I'm doing in my life that is different? Because this is big stuff that's happening for me right now. And the only thing was Bowen that was different. So I thought, well, if it does that, I want to go. I want to learn something that moves my body in such a way that creates such subtle and such hugely deep shifts. So that was why I was inspired. And then I, at this point in my kind of career, I suppose, I'm quite good at hunting out a good teacher. And I sniffed out John. And I was like, yeah, that's the one. I want him because he's great, right?
But with Bowen, even when you see clients, is it something that you would recommend to them, or is it something you think people seek?
Well, I think different people need different things. When everyone says this works, this doesn't work, I just think that's not true.
Yeah.
Because this will work for you and it will not work for me.
Yeah.
So, and what I love about Somatics is that you are asking people to take responsibility to do these small and easy movements every day to make a long-term change. So I can't do the work for you in somatics. You have to do it yourself. But what I learned over the time I was doing it is that it requires someone to be in that quiet space, the one that you said you don't like to be in. So we might struggle to do somatics.
I don't like it.
Okay.
It's tough.
It's
tough
it's
to
uncomfortable.
commit. It's tough to commit.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. But lots of people aren't comfortable in that space of stillness, because when you're still and when you listen, you can hear things.
You hear your inner guru.
You hear all the things that are happening. And for some people, they are not okay with that. It's very upsetting, very traumatic to be still. It's too much. And I witnessed that with some clients, to sort of encourage them to do certain movements was triggering flashbacks of abuse from like decades and decades earlier. And I was like, okay, this is not right for everyone. And I want to be able to offer something to everyone, that's appropriate for them. And I feel like Bowen is much more like, I can give Bowen to an elderly. I gave Bowen to my 96-year-old grandfather today, and I can give Bowen to my baby. And I gave Bowen to my baby when he was a day old, and I think that is a magical thing about Bowen, is that it can just be done on anybody who's willing, essentially. Whereas massage and somatics, it's not for everybody, like somatics is definitely, you've got to be up for being still, listening, putting the work in.
Yeah, you need to be cooperate.
Yeah. Whereas Bowen, we can just try some stuff, and either it works or it doesn't work.
Yeah. There's some. I think I saw also on your website the myth of aging. So, which is which I have my thoughts about, but I really want to hear how do you approach it?
So
is it a myth, or are you just playing with words to trigger us?
Those aren't my words. Those are Thomas Hanna's words. So he teaches a movement series.
And that's the same one with the somatic movement therapy.
Somatic movement therapy, yeah. So he teaches a somatic movement series that he called the myth of aging. So you kind of undoing. He would say that we go from 2 feet to 3. As we get older, we come with a stick, and you see these really old people and they're bent over double, and they've got their stick, and so they're like 3-legged. And Thomas Hanna said that he believed that our bodies could become wiser with age, as our minds do, that there's no reason for us to become more decrepit. It's just all of these accumulative muscle habits that then contribute to us becoming more and more physically unable. And I think that is quite simplified, because I think that it's much more complex than that. And, there's so many other levels involved in people's well-being or not.
Yeah.
But that was his basic theory, is that, we become more decrepit as we get older because we've got all these accumulative muscle habits, but we needn't. And I mean, I know that I'm very grateful for my practice, because I'm 44. I've never been like a big fitness fanatic, or, like it's an effort for me to kind of be fit, but to have like a sense of physical well-being, I think I guess I started to take it for granted, because I had this regular somatic practice and I'd had it for years and years. And then when I had my baby, I didn't have access to that. I couldn't get up 45 minutes early in the morning and sit my meditation and do my 20-minute somatic practice. And I'd just done that every day since forever, really, or almost every day. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I feel so decrepit, like my body hurts. And now I kind of have a occasional practice, now that my boy's getting to an age where I can steal some time sometimes. And the few days, if I can manage to do that practice every day for a few days, I feel like, I can get up off the floor easier, and I can, I can get up off the couch, all of those things, and I can move in a slightly more dynamic and it feels more youthful way. So I think that's the myth of aging, is that actually you can move a lot easier than you may believe. And I think also we're very programmed to understand that as we get older, we will become more decrepit. I remember when I was kind of a teenager, and the first time I got up and like my knee cricked, I was like, I'm getting older. It was almost like a cool thing.
Yeah.
Because we think that our body
even now
starts to
everyone's
break
like,
down.
my back, I'm getting old.
Yeah. But actually, it's not about that. It's not often about that. It's often about this accumulative muscle like contractions. And I've seen it because I've worked with people who are young, and they come in and they have awful physical states of being because of what they've been through in their life, whether it be physical or emotional, both. But they're young, but they could be seen to be much more decrepit than someone's in their 50s who's had quite a nice, free, happy, no accidents kind of life. It's not that clear cut. Our bodies become tired or become or have pain from repeated and accumulative
wear and tear.
Issue.
Wear and tear, and also you're saying like certain limitations as well that we also impose on ourselves. For example, if now from the age of 18 until the age of 65, I'm going to be sitting on a chair 9 hours a day. So I'm imposing these certain limitations on myself. I'm forcing myself into this template of a life that, of course, I'm going to lose range of motion in my hips and my knees and everything else. Of course, it's going to change the structure of my body. I've been playing football every day from age 6 to 18, and now I'm going to be sitting and not playing football every day.
Yeah. And we're not made to do that, actually. We're made to be out grubbing around in the dirt to find our food and, and like sitting on the floor and going to the toilet, squatting over a hole in the ground. We're not
like in India.
Yeah. But it's really interesting in India because you see there's so much poverty. So you see so many people living in such a basic way.
Yeah.
But they're not sad or they're not, and you'll see, unfortunately, some areas the toilet is a field. So you see old men squatting with their feet flat on the ground, squatting, reading a paper, going to the toilet, and they're in their 70s. And there's no way my dad could do that. No way would he even think that he could squat down. He just struggled it down his knees.
I would guess I'm turning 30 soon, but I would guess that most 30-year-olds wouldn't be able to squat down and poop.
Yeah.
Without leaning against something or, some assistance.
But if you're doing it every day and and also in India, they spend a lot of time just sitting on their haunches in that way. So you're waiting for a bus or you're doing the washing up. We don't have chairs. They don't, poorer communities, they don't necessarily have a sink in the kitchen. Yeah. So they'll be squatting next to a river.
Nothing's limiting their movement.
No. So they're, but they're living in a way that we were maybe more intended for as animals, which is essentially what we are, right? We're just very sophisticated animals, In
your trip in India, did it include some yoga training, or was it just the Bengali massage?
No, definitely there was some yoga. Yeah. I did spend some time in a yoga ashram, quite commercial.
Well, it wasn't as an emotional experience as the Bengali massage.
No, the classes were like 90 people in a class. Yeah. It was amazing in the fact that I went in there like so stiff, and after a month of 4 or 5 hours of yoga a day, I was like super bendy, which didn't sustain because I'm just not that disciplined with that kind of physical movement. I kind of dip my toe in and out, but yeah, there was definitely some. You can't go to India for any period of time and not try some yoga. I think it's hard.
So how was it teaching the Bengali massage?
It was a lot easier than giving the Bengali massage. That was why I was like, this is nice. I'm sat here and I'm watching people.
Directing people.
Directing people. Yeah. It was lovely to start to teach it. And I hope to come back to it again at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was challenging because how do you teach someone to use their intuition? Like to try and work that out, to try and encourage people to feel with their hands and to feel, because I think if you, you're talking to John about the craniosacral, I think if anyone was to put their hands on the body and just move, most people would probably, their fingers would find points that are like acupuncture points, because I think there's a kind of natural energy hotspots. And it's trying to teach people how to feel for that without kind of giving them a map and saying that's there, and there. So when you're there, you should feel such and such. You know, I was just, because I was never taught like that, and I felt like that was really the magic in my teaching, is that I just had to work it out, basically. But I wanted to give more form than I was given and more structure. But it was a really, really, really interesting thing to do, and I want to do more of it, and I hope that I would get better at it. But it's teaching someone how to listen, how to work from their heart and not from their head.
Yeah,
that was, really challenging.
And there's also something we touched on before, but it's like there's a responsibility there, or a bigger part maybe that the therapist is playing, because they need to find that intuition within themselves before they can start thinking about the patient sitting in front of them. So it's like the double challenge. It's not just listening to the body of the patient, but also first understanding that who you are, what your intuition is, and then trying to listen to the patient's body, which seems difficult to teach as well. It
is difficult, and again, it's something that isn't for everyone. And what I learned to teaching this really small course with people that I knew them all quite well, that if I was to move forward and do more of it in the future, then there would need to be more of an interview process and the discussion as to, is this right for you as a person? Like, is this, because this is not something that I can just teach you by teaching you A, B, C, and D. And I can't pass you if you can do A, B, C, and D, but you don't feel it in your heart. So it's making sure that people come into it really knowing and understanding and being ready for that quiet space, to be in that quiet space in their body and to share that quiet space with their clients.
We have a tradition now on the podcast, where I'm going to pose a question to you. I want to know if there's something that maybe when you were 24, when you were in India, or 25, or maybe as of more recent, but something that you changed your mind on completely, maybe something you were adamant about in the past. It can be to do with your different practices of therapy, but it doesn't have to be.
That's quite hard. I was thinking about it when you were asking John. I was like, I don't know why I think about that. Because I think...
Because the purpose here is like to... there's so many things that we even like certain patterns of muscles that we know that we kind of impose on ourselves. Like patterns and what's the word you used?
Habitual.
Different habits that we create, that we just assume they're the right way we should be doing things all the time, until for whatever experience, reason, incident, you get a slap in the face, and then you realize, maybe that's not. And every time I have one of those, it makes me realize, okay, what else in my life am I assuming is correct, because I had no reason to assume it's not correct, but maybe it's incorrect. Well, no, I'm using correct, incorrect. But,
I understand.
But so that's the purpose here, because also like someone who did finish like a generic massage school here in the UK, who learned A, B, C, D, and is confident that they know A, B, C, D, and what else is there to know, because that's what the curriculum had, A, B, C, D. Let's help them realize that they're going to change their mind about so many things in 6 years, 5 years, 20 years.
Yeah, I think as far as my journey in my work goes, I think I've only ever I don't think I've had my mind radically changed. I've just known, like, this isn't complete. This isn't where I want to be, or this doesn't feel right. Like when I did my first generic massage course, and I was like, it's just, I don't believe that this is it, and I went off looking for something that was more it.
Yeah.
And so I think in my work I've never really been set, because I was so lucky to meet my teacher so early on, and just to be told to be open, and to listen. And I really feel like I try and do that as much as possible in my kind of bodywork path. But also, so if you say it's not necessarily in this, so I am also a really keen gardener. So I grow all my food, all my vegetables, and I learned that from my dad, and my dad learned from his dad, and and so you just do it in the way that you're taught, like in the winter comes, you dig over your soil and you do this. And then once upon a time, I was at a local festival, and this guy was doing a talk, a guy called Charles Dowding, who's now quite a big name in the gardening world. He was doing a talk on no-dig gardening, and it blew my mind, because I was like, what do you mean? I don't have to dig the soil. Like, that's wrong. Not only is it like, oh, you don't have to do it quite like that. It's like, that's the wrong way to do it. And to then have tried and to followed Charles's recommendations and to grow my vegetables in a no-dig garden.
What does your dad think about that?
My dad is also now a no-digger.
Wow.
He had to, because he was giving me seedling plants, and then he'd come to my allotment and he'd say, why are your plants so much bigger than my plants? And I grew them both. And he spends a lot more time and care on his garden than I have the capacity to do. And so I said, that because I do this no dig. And so he has become a complete convert, and he recommends it to all the people on his allotment to do no dig as well. And if he sees him digging, he says, no, you're doing it wrong. You don't want to do that. You don't want to dig. And it's a huge way, like different way of doing things. And gardeners are very like, they're diggers or they're no diggers, But once you no dig, there's no going back, because it's the only way, It's a great way.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That was
So
a good.
I digress, but
it was a good answer. It was a good. No one has brought up gardening before, and I never had to sit here and pretend like I knew some of the terms you were throwing at me, because I don't grow any of my vegetables, but I will one day.
Well, maybe.
And now I know who to go to for advice.
You go to Charles Dowding. That's who you go to for advice.
I'll come to you. Kat, thank you very much. Really pleasure having you here. We're in Somerset, so we're in your backyard.
Mm-hmm.
So it is really cool to speak to you. I don't feel as guilty as I did before the podcast, not knowing what Bengali massage was, because
nobody knows.
Now everyone is but now people do know.
Maybe
some people
know,
some people do know. So I'll do some exploring also to see like what maybe other massage techniques are out there that are maybe follow something similar.
Yeah, and I think that now there are over time, more people working that way, so there will be some techniques that are from the heart more.
Yeah, it's a good name though, Bengali Massage.
It's nice.
It is. So thank you very much. It was fun, and
Thank
I hope
you.
we'll definitely be back here in Frome, Somerset. So hopefully we can do this again.
Great, yeah.